Welcome to Making Wine at Home. Now in this edition, we're taking our red wine kit to the next level. Now we're following our instructions and we're being very clear as to what we're doing step by step. And today, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to take that specific gravity and make sure that it's time to go to the next step. I'm pretty sure it is. After about 14 days, it's pretty much done with its fermentation in the primary phase. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to take that bag that had all the grape skins and all that stuff out. We're going to take that out. We're going to squeeze it really well, get the last of the goodie out of it. Then we're going to rack that wine to a carboy. Now when we rack the wine to the carboy, we're going to make sure we're going to leave all the lees as much as we can behind. We're going to get the clearest grape juice that we can out of that primary fermenter. Then we're going to add a couple of things to it. We're going to add metabisulfite, and we're going to also add sorbate. Now that's going to stop any fermentation from continuing, because at this point we don't want any more fermentation. It's done. We want to make sure that we go on to the next phase. Now, in addition to that, we're going to put a fining ingredient in. Now remember, when we looked at our package of all the ingredients, we had something called Chitosan. Now Chitosan, we had two of these packets. Chitosan is one of the two fining agents that we use. The other is Chitosan. That'll be for tomorrow. But we're going to take the first of the two, we're going to mix that in before we call today's addition to an end. So stick with us through the addition. Again, if you have any questions, certainly leave them in the comments below. But stick with this. I think you're going to really learn something. This is really going to be an interesting addition. So let's review our instructions. Let's take the specific gravity, and then we will record it here along with the date for the day we take it. Then what we'll do is remove that grape skins bag, and we'll get the last of the juice out of it. We'll siphon or rack the wine into a clean sanitized carboy, and we're going to leave as much sediment behind as we can. We'll add the sulfite and sorbate and mix that in. We'll agitate the wine with our wine whip. That's going to degas as much as we can. We'll stir in one of the two Chitosan packages. The other one will go in tomorrow. We'll put an airlock on, and we are going to let that sit for at least 24 hours. We're just going to speed through this really quickly, getting everything ready to go, and then we'll see the specific gravity. How does that look? I think that we're just around 0.990992. What's that look like? 992 maybe. Looks pretty good to me. The next step is we'll go ahead and take this out, and we will return that wine to the fermenter. Now the next step is we'll go ahead and take that grape bag out and put it in the bowl. If you notice, what I'm doing is I'm squeezing all of the juice that I can get out of it. Put it in this. Now we'll clean this up, and we will rack the contents out into a sterile carboy. That's the next step. I'm not sure if you remember the white wine kit, but when we went to take the wine out of the primary fermenter and put it into the carboy, it was hard to see it because you couldn't really see it traveling through the tube. Now I have my clean and sanitized auto siphon in the primary fermenter, and we're going to get that started now. Open up, and you can see it is starting to pump through, And what we'll do is we'll keep an eye on the auto siphon, and we'll keep inching it down as this begins to drain. And I'll give you more of a detail view of this, and I'll pull back so that you can see the carboy being filled up as well. There's the carboy filling right now. You can see that nice dark liquid that's coming out of the primary fermenter. Now the reason that I've got that auto siphon pretty high is I don't want to pick up any of the sediment that's in the bottom. I'm going to go to that detail view in just a minute as well. Here's a nice top-down view where you can see the auto siphon is in the must, and we're pulling it out. And what I continue to do with that is I keep moving it down. So I keep looking and just make sure that I'm not too far down, and I go ahead and drop it down just a little bit. And at some point it's going to be hard for me to show you with the camera, certainly at this angle, but I will tip that carboy back just to get whatever I can out of the very bottom. That carboy is filling quite nicely, and I expect that we should get very close, probably right up to about here, maybe a little higher, with what's in the primary fermenter. Now you can see it's emptying right now. In fact, it's almost at the very end. Once again, we're going to do this hands-free, but this is the easiest way to do it. You can see all of that gunk down in the bottom. Now, that is the sediment that is left in the bottom of the primary fermenter. That is all of the oak dust, the tannins and particulates that came from the grape skins, and all of the yeast, and that's pretty thick, and that's what we call lees. We do not want that as part of our wine must, so we had to rack off of that. But look how thick and muddy that is. That's going to get thrown out, but I wanted you to see it because this is very important. This is what you've got to leave behind. So catching up on the instructions, we've just racked the wine from the primary fermenter into a clean sanitized carboy. We're about to add the sulfite and sorbate. After that, we will agitate the wine to thoroughly degas the wine, and that'll take a little bit of time to do. We will add one of the two Chitosan packs, and then we will fit an airlock and wait until day 15, which really will be tomorrow, where we'll continue with the clearing. So we're going to add the potassium sorbate and the potassium metabisulfite to the carboy, and we're going to stir that up with the end of a sterilized spoon. So we're pretty high. Now we're going to do this for a little while, and then what I'm going to do is put the degassing wand in and really stir it up. So we'll add our whip that we're going to put a drill on. So usually in the easiest way to do this is to keep this carboy on the floor. And the reason is that it's easier to manage this process, but it's also easier for me to show you this while I have it up on something. As you're degassing the wine, resist the temptation to create a vortex in the wine. That's why you want to go back and forth several times so that you can drive the carbon dioxide out, but you don't want to drive any oxygen into the wine. Now you can see the carbon dioxide starting to come out of the wine. We're going to go through this multiple times. I may or may not show that on camera, but this is enough for you to be able to see this. This is the desired effect, and as that continues to release the carbon dioxide, we'll get some foam. As I said, we want to avoid having it foam over, so this is at a good rate. I'm going to let this one go. It'll clear up pretty quickly. I'll go through the whip process, the degassing process again, to try to get more of the gas out. And then when I've gotten to a point where I don't really get any more gas, then we're going to go to the next stage, which is to add the Chitosan. We are ready to put the Chitosan in. Now I have the Chitosan, I have 2 packages, but we're going to put one of those in here. We're just going to stir gently. Now the carboy right now is striking at 75 degrees. So we're in the optimal temperature zone right now for this wine. All right, that's been sanitized. I've made sure that it has a little bit of metabisulfite in it. And now we're going to tent this and let it sit for a day. We're going to come back tomorrow and continue with the fining process. So we have reached day 15 in our clearing process, and we'll review the instructions. Today we will stir in the 2 bags of Chitosan that we have. Our kit did have a second Chitosan, so we will wait for 1 hour before we stir that in after the Chitosan. We do have oak cubes. We'll stir them in after we've put the Chitosan in. We don't have a reserve bag of any kind, so we won't be adding that to the kit. We'll put the airlock back on, and we will wait for 5 days to give the carboy a bit of a twist. I'll do that off camera because the wine is so dark you won't be able to see the particulates fall off the side. And then we will wait for day 54, and that'll be in the next video. So what's left to do? We have our 2 bags of Chitosan, we have our Chitosan, and then we have our oak cubes. Now, when we add all of these, we have to pay attention to the headroom that is left in the carboy, because these are going to displace some of the wine, and if it goes too far, we're going to have to remove some. I think we're in good shape. We're going to take a look at that in a second. First thing we'll do is remove this airlock. I do it slowly so it doesn't drop any water in. Alright, so according to the instructions, we're going to put both of these Chitosan bags in. Here's the second one. Chitosan is made from shellfish, the shells from shellfish, and it is used to grab hold of the particulates that are in the wine and pull them down as lees or sediment. Okay, after about an hour we are going to add the Chitosan. Now the Chitosan is another fining agent. We added the first one yesterday, and we're adding the second one today. And we'll stir that in. We're going to stir this for about a minute just to make sure that the Chitosan gets well combined. And then we'll come back and add the oak cubes. Now what I've done is I have added these oak cubes to a beaker, and it's better to use something like this to pour them in than just from the packages, because the packages are hard to control. But this can be hard as well. So what I tend to do is cut my hand up around and do this. So I'm going to shoot this from above so you can see it. Okay, from above you can kind of see what I'm doing with my hand. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't lose too many of these. Can you lose a few of them? You can. That's okay. Anything that you drop onto the floor, do not use. Don't wash it off. You know, a couple of cubes that you might lose is not going to hurt anything. These cubes, these are oak that have been toasted. They're slightly charred on one side. And there we are with the airlock attached. Now we're going to let this sit for 5 days, and we'll come back, and on the 5th day we'll give it a little bit of a twist to shake loose any of the particulates that are sticking to the side. And then we'll wait for day 56 or day 57. Probably take a specific gravity on 56 just to make sure that we're in good shape. We should be fine at that point. Specific gravity is already lower than it needs to be. We'll want that wine to be crystal clear at that point, and at that time we'll go through our next racking and get ready to polish this wine and filter it. Wow. Did we learn a lot today? Well, we took the specific gravity. We found that that wine was ready to go to the next stage. So we took that grape skin bag, we took that bag I kept calling the sock, out, we squeezed it, got the last of the goodie out of that. Then we racked that wine to a carboy. Now, when we racked the wine to the carboy in the white wine kit, you couldn't really see it happening, but in the red wine kit, boy, you could see that red wine coming through the tube. Perfectly orchestrated. We moved that wine from that primary fermenter into the secondary fermenter. And when we did that, we got the clearest wine we could at that point in time. Then what we did was we said, well, we're going to go ahead and add some agents to this wine. One of them is metabisulfite. Now, what metabisulfite is for is to start that fermentation from occurring. So if there's any continuing fermentation, metabisulfite stops it. Now, we also added sorbate. Now, sorbate will stop the fermentation from occurring in the future. So essentially what we've done, we stop the fermentation currently, and we've said, hey, we're going to stop that fermentation from occurring in the future as well. We've also done something else. We added Chitosan. Now, Chitosan is one of the two fining agents that we use. Remember, we have Chitosan and then we have Chitosan. And what that's designed to do is that's designed to bring particulates out of the wine so that when you go to rack the next time, all of that sediment has dropped to the bottom of the carboy. And then when you go to rack, you're pulling clearer and clearer wine off each time. So thank you for joining us during this edition. Look forward to the next, which is actually going to just be tomorrow. But just remember, have a glass of wine today, and soon, very soon, it's going to be your own glass of wine that you have made. Cheers.